Everybody's attention.
Good evening. I have 7 o'clock. The clock on the wall is fast. Are we good to go, Cynthia? Thank you very much. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting of the Board of Selectmen for August 7th at 7 p.m. to order. If we could please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This evening we have myself, First Selectwoman Tara Carr present, Selectman Harry Shaker, and Selectman Steve Dunn. I'd like to start off by making a motion to move the items that pertain to fire and police from our new items to the top of the agenda.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll go ahead and start with item 6, Bravo, the fire watch ordinance.
Oh, you're going to skip public comment?
I'm sorry, we should go straight to public comment.
Yeah, you should.
So I'd like to amend my motion to move to the fire and police to the top after public comment.
Right.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Without further ado, public comment.
Salem, 148 Whiskey Road, and also I am the chair of the Brookfield Historic District Commission. So I'm here to speak about the Williams Park master plan, of which I just made aware of 2 days ago. As everyone knows, Williams Park sits in the Brookfield Historic District, number 1. Let me preface this by saying that I don't have any opposition to a grant to add pickleball courts for the town of Brookfield. What I do have opposition to is A, the location, B, lack of coordination between Park and Rec, the Historic District Commission, the Conservation Commission, who also has purview over the property. Nobody was made aware of this in any way, shape, or form. I do not know, because like I said, brand new to me. I don't know if any other areas were considered to put the pickleball courts. We do have a whole bunch of property at the center school that, would be, to me, logistically make more sense. We have the parking. We're looking at like 100, if you look at the worst case scenario, 4 pickleball courts times 4 people, that's 16 people an hour times 8 hours. As I said, worst case scenario, it's 128 car trips right there. And you're right in the center of the historic district. The other thing it does is, there's clear cutting. It's gonna take away a bunch of old trees and alter, the landscape the way it is. I'm sure that we're gonna run into some of the stone walls. And I want everyone to understand that according to state statute 97A, whether it's landscape, it's buildings, it's reworking of topography, it's driveways, it's paths, it's stone walls, or any change in surface has to be approved by the Historic District Commission if it lies within the boundaries. Now, worst case scenario, it's everything except the pickleball courts, but the state just put up a new website that has all the towns in Connecticut with all the historic resource information that they have. And according to their line, the first pickleball court is going to be within the boundary of the local historic district. It's also a National Register district, so.
Sorry, Jackie, if you could finish up.
It's fine, it's no problem. So
Thank you,
I think that.
Jackie, thank you.
Yeah, so that's
I hear you loud and clear, Jackie, and
pretty much it.
there's a lot of misinformation.
We've
I
had-
just want to say that we haven't gotten to the presentation yet, so if everyone has similar message, I've got a whole file full of emails that came across
I'm sure.
my computer over the
Figured
last
as well.
weekend. Next.
Lauren Janowski.
Hi, Lauren.
Hello. 39 Obtuse Road South.
Hi, Lauren Janowski. I am also the proud president of the Brookfield Soccer Club. I wanted to speak tonight to formally ask for a meeting with the Board of Selectmen for all not-for-profit youth sports organizations in town. I've spoken with numerous sports presidents in town, and we would all like to come together to discuss the policy changes being proposed by the Parks and Rec Commission. The Park and Rec Commission is trying to create policies that have the ability to affect every single family with kids looking to play youth sports. This past week, I had to formally request those policy changes by the Parks and Rec Commission by the Freedom of Information Act group at the state. Brookfield Soccer Club wants to work together with Laura Murphy and the Park and Rec Commission. However, each time we have met with the commission, we are on the defensive. I personally wrote to the Board of Selectmen on June 26th that a member of the Park and Rec Commission at Butt had bullied myself and threatened our organization. Aside from an email back, there has been zero follow-through from the Board of Selectmen or the Park and Rec Commission. Last Monday, July 31st, the Brookfield Soccer Club was mandated to attend another meeting with the Park and Rec Commission, where we were again threatened by yet another Park and Rec Commission member, Renee Santiago. Members have now stated twice that they will dismantle our assets we have on town property, which include the lights on Lower P-TAC. This would cost the town in excess of $400,000 to replace. The Brookfield Soccer Club has had to seek legal counsel due to the threats made by the Park and Rec Commission. We want to come together to create policies that work for all families in all sports. However, the current draft shows charges wanting to be made per player, per sport, just to use town fields. We would like to know what the money would go towards, how the Board of Finance is being brought into this conversation, and the new revenue being generated by the Parks and Rec Commission. How are families being made aware of the additional charges to play on town fields before these policies are being implemented? I would like to know where each Board of Selectmen member stands, especially going into an election year, as charging a field use fee to families seems like a very important topic our town taxpayers need to be made aware of. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ellen?
Hi, I'm Ellen Young, 18 Lillinois Drive, and I'm here just to represent pickleball players, and I'm not here to talk about the location. I'm just happy to know that we're getting support from Laura and hopefully the first selectman and everyone else. And just to sort of reiterate, I'm representing a bunch of people who play every day at Cadigan Park. And as I know you've heard probably a million times, it's the fastest growing sport in the U.S. Probably sick of hearing that, but we actually do get a great turnout, and they're teaching pickleball in the schools now. So we're actually starting to get a lot, some younger people playing. So I think over time we're going to see more and more demand for the courts. So just wanted to again show my support, and we usually have about, I would say, on your average day, 8 people playing at a time. And then mostly in the morning, and probably 16 to 20 people waiting. So you might have, wait 15, 20 minutes to play a 10-minute game. So, it's a long wait. So that's really why we're looking for some more courts. And again, wherever we put them, it's not, we don't care. So, and I realize there's issues, obviously, but if we can get this grant, I think it would be a wonderful thing, and we really appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to just say it's amazing to see everybody here tonight, and I want you to pay extra special attention on the vacancies, because if you would like to volunteer for a board or a commission, if you're not already involved, I would love to get you appointed. So thanks everyone for being here.
Next up, Ed Grant.
How are you? Ed Grant, 251 Candlewood Lake Road, Brookfield. In the risk of being repetitive, I'm also here in support of the pickleball that we playing and getting the courts established someplace in Brookfield. The sense of community, that it builds, and the bonds that it builds is far more valuable than we think. The sport between 2021 grew from 5 million players who had played it at least once to 36 million players. That's in 1 year. So it is very popular because it is a very social aspect to the sport. As far as the location of it is concerned, again, like Ellen, it's not that important that if we're encroaching on some space that we shouldn't, then that's not where it should go. But it's just if we have spaces where it could be it could be, we can install the courts, and that's all I wanted to just say, is that we really should have an open mind towards it.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Next.
Next up is Anthony Capiello.
Anthony Capiello, 135 Candlewood Lake Road. Thank you, members of the Board of Selectmen, for the opportunity to share some thoughts on the steep grant proposal to develop pickleball courts in Williams Park open space. As some of you may know, I am the current chair of the Brookfield Conservation Commission. However, tonight I will speak to you simply as an informed resident of the town. The reason that I can't speak for the Conservation Commission this evening is that this matter was not brought before the Commission for our review and comment. The Commission was completely unaware. Some members only found out about it on social media Thursday night, and I myself not until midday Friday. This left us no time to convene a commission to discuss the proposal before tonight's meeting. I'm not here to advocate against pickleball courts. However, I am raising questions about the process that has transpired to get us to this juncture. Chapter 15-5 of the Brookfield Town Code establishes the powers and duties of the Conservation Commission. For the sake of time, I will not read or paraphrase these here, but I call your attention to subparagraphs A, B, and C. Arguably, any one of these paragraphs conveys the intent that the Conservation Commission should have been included in this process. However, no such advice or consultation was sought from any of the other boards and commissions named therein. It seemed fairly clear to me and other members of the commission that we have not been duly engaged to exercise our duties as intended by the town charter. I've heard some questions and uncertainty about the designation of Williams Park as open space and under whose jurisdiction this town-owned land may fall. I must say that most, if not all, members of the Conservation Commission feel that this park is clearly included within our charges. For clarity, I refer to the 2015 Plan of Conservation and Development as amended March 17, 2016. Specifically, the open space map on page 121 therein expressly identifies Williams Park as town-owned Brookfield open space. Thank you for your time.
Yep,
you.
and I saw you just emailed that to the board, so we have it now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks.
Ashley Bell.
Hello, Ashley Schupel, 153 Wiskinier Road. Dear Board of Selectmen, thank you for giving me time to speak during public comment this evening. I'd like to state my name, Ashley Schupel, and I am an active member on the Brookfield Conservation Commission and also on the advisory board for Northwest Connecticut Land Conservancy in Brookfield. However, I'm coming to speak to you today as a concerned citizen of the town of Brookfield. The reason I'm here tonight is to express my concerns in regards to an upcoming proposal about the 4 pickleball courts added to Williams Park open space. I'm addressing this with you as Williams Park is listed on the town website under the care of the Conservation Commission, and we have not been privy to any information regarding this project until finding out via a social media post. It's part of my duty as a member of the commission to address with the board anything that might impact open space directly. I'm also concerned that this proposal would impact the area in which myself and other volunteers have been dedicated to working at Williams Park. On reviewing the plans, it looks as though an ADA trail is directly going through the area we've been working so diligently on removing invasive plants to fulfill our BEF grant that was awarded last year. I would also like the board to consider how this project might impact local wildlife. If it's possible to consider having a herpetologist survey the area for possible salamanders or turtles that are living there, as the pond is not far from where the location is proposed. Please also consider noise and light pollution associated with the construction and implementation of these courts in this area. All of these factors play a role in affecting local wildlife, and would request that the Board of Selectmen wait on sending approval for this plan in this location until adequate time has been given to the Commission to review in detail. Furthermore, another area of concern comes to mind. In the Connecticut Handbook of Conservation Commissions, under legislative authorization, it states, according to this legislation, a Conservation Commission must perform the following. Number 4, approve prior to submission state grant and aid applications for programs to preserve or restrict the use of open space lands to conservation or recreation purposes. Thank you. So I'm asking you to consider us our involvement.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Ashley.
Andy.
Thank you. Andy Kane, 5 Fernbrook Drive. I'd like to thank the Selectmen for all their efforts. I'd urge completion and application for the steep grant to benefit the town's improvements at Williams Park and Streetscape 6 projects. As many have noted, this is simply a grant application. We may not even receive it. State grants allow the town to pay for more by using less town money. Brookfield sends a lot of money to Hartford. Nice to see some of that money return to the town. Thank you to the Board of Selectmen and the Economic Development Coordinator for their grant application efforts. I'd also like to speak in favor of Sarah Palmer for the position of Town's Emergency Management Director. This is a critical need in the town, and a resident calls 911, they need help. The Brookfield Police Department, Fire and EMS are professional operations. Sarah Palmer has contributed to these. As Emergency Management Director, she will continue to make Brookfield safer for all of us. Thank you for our first selectman for being proactive and expeditious in filling this primary function in Brookfield. Lastly, I'd like to say regarding the WPCA, the letter in the selectmen's packet to the WPCA is on point. As Selectman Dunn noted in the prior meeting, the WPCA needs to address their operations first. This letter encourages that. As a resident who does not benefit, this is a personal item, as a resident who does not benefit from sewers, I would suggest a program be implemented for septic tank and field replacement for residents in the town. This would be similar to the sewer hookup funding. Residents would be able to borrow at the town's lower interest rate and pay a small administrative charge. The note would be a lien against the property, so there would be zero risk to the town. The town benefits with less water pollution as we were. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any others?
Yeah. Lynn Zuback.
Hi, another one for those pickleball courts, I'm sorry. Lynn
Okay.
Zuback, 55 Ironworks Hill Road. So I've lived in Brookfield since 1996. One of the things I loved about it was Williams Park. My husband and I go there almost every single day to reconnect with nature, to take a break from our work day, especially these years of working at home. It's truly one of Brookfield's gems, and I believe it should be protected. Just this summer, I was amazed by the variety of birds that call Williams Park's home. I have that Merlin app where you can listen to the sounds of birds, and as you enter into the tennis courts, you can hear easternwood peewees, great crested flycatchers, and red-eyed vireos, just to name a few. And these are not your common backyard birds that you would hear at your feeders at home. They need quiet wooded habitat. If pickleball courts are allowed to be installed at Williams Park, all anyone will hear is the constant pop, pop, pop of the paddles hitting the balls. It's not like the sound of tennis, it's much louder and constant. And if you Google pickleball noise, you will see numerous articles and recent news stories of all the noise complaints all over the country. I can't imagine how this will impact those that live near the park. And I know someone mentioned that's a very social sport, and I think that's great, but to me, very social is noisy. I urge you to think of the impact these courts will have on the nearby residents. The library, I noticed they installed the story walk signs right in the front lawn recently, and those that use the park for what it is intended for. As this town brochure states that I've had for years and years, Williams Park is intended for passive recreation use only, not pickleball courts with bleacher seating. So I just want you to reconsider the location of the park, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
First meeting.
Good job. Come back for more.
It's really interesting.
Lorraine Bellato.
Good evening, I'm Lorraine Bellato. I have had the good fortune to live in Brookfield at 16 Mudgery Farm Road for about 33 years. We've watched the town develop. We've enjoyed everything that has been brought forward, with the exception of this idea for the pickleball courts at Williams Park. Everyone else has already spoken about the information and the impact that it will have, and I just want to add my voice to it. I don't think we should take any more green space. I think we have just enough right now of all the development, and I think the green space should be protected in addition to all the other aspects of Williams Park. It's very simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Darrell Pratt.
Good evening, Darrell Pratt, 181 Wisteria Road. My property actually abuts the tennis courts, right on it. I've got a map of it if anyone'd like to see it.
230 feet away
Yeah.
from the tennis courts.
That's it. But I'd like to start with a New York Times article, New York Times article dated June 30th, 2023. You might have got a copy of this or not, but it starts off with, shattered nerves, sleepless nights, pickleball noise is driving everyone nuts. And I agree. And I just, I'm not opposed to it, but in our nice quiet park like Williams Park, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. I actually work out of my house. I do business out of there. I do Teams meetings, Zoom meetings. I can't imagine having pop, pop, pop going off in the back of my, back of my head and that. So, and my office actually looks right across the park. So, anyway, just see it. Like I looked today when I drove into the parking lot here. I noticed a lot of land that we could put a pickle park right here on town property. You have plenty of parking. It would make more sense to me for the amount of work you have to do. And someone had already mentioned how nice the park is and how peaceful it is, and now to take that away doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, that's how I feel. If you could really reconsider another location, that'd be excellent. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, I can't read the first name, but the last name is Villaverdi.
Yes, Alan Delivery.
Thank you.
Full disclosure, I'm Alan Delivery, 118 Tower Road, and I'm also the father of Tracy Delivery, who is the husband of Daryl Pratt, whose house is adjacent to pickleball site. Anyway, I come from Orlando. I moved here in Brookfield almost 10 years ago, and Orlando, as you know, is the poster child for infringement on residential areas. And I've seen I lived there for 24 years, and I've seen over and over again a little bit of encroachment on the residential areas in all locations. And this is not in that vein, but I think it's one element of encroachment in a residential area that could impact it. And I want you to really consider another location that doesn't impact residents. And the other thing is, a gentleman said it's become very social. The key word there is social. Not only the players, but the observers of the players and the cheerleading going on. That's a big concern of mine. And then finally, when I moved here, I went to Williams Park, and it's a unique park because it involves farmland and wooded area. And then all of a sudden, I saw the tennis courts, and I said, "What the hell is tennis courts doing here?" It's out of place. And I think Daryl said it. Maybe a relocation, maybe even the tennis courts somewhere over here, which you could make a recreation area on town property. That's just a recommendation, but I strongly recommend you find another location. And technically, for the record, I'm not opposed to pickleball. I just opposed to the location on Williams Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're on the record, by the way.
Louis Limon, sorry, I pronounced that wrong.
Good evening. My name is Louis Manley, 49 Merwin Brook Road in Brookfield. I'm talking about the pickleball courts. Go on record to say I'm not against it. In fact, I'm in favor of having pickleball courts somewhere, but not according to the current proposed plan. I'm not going to go into the details about the Conservation Commission or the Historical Society, which I believe should have the opportunity to provide their review and comments before this moves forward. I do have a couple of questions. Now, it's already been mentioned by Mr. Pratt about the noise levels that ensue from such pickleball court installations. So I'm asking if the other neighbors around this area have been informed and if their opinions have been taken. Finally, again, no problem in having pickleball courts, but please look for other places to put them that are away from residential areas that have the space. Just off the top of my head and using measurements from the Brookfield Map Express, Cadogan Park has about 9,900 square feet of space, and the pickleball court is 880 per court. Behind us is a large area of land, roughly a quarter of an acre, and again, 880 square feet per court. You can fit a lot of them in there, and there's plenty of parking already here. So I just urge you to take your time. I know the 18th is the deadline for submitting for the grant, but if we have a good week for people to provide the information that you need to make your final decision and to rework the plan accordingly.
Thank you.
Kevin Nicholas.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you all. I'm Kevin Nicholas. I live at 3 Long Meadow Hill, which is adjacent, or kind of adjacent to the Williams Park area. I will say that so many of my neighbors and other concerned citizens have said a lot of great points. They made a lot of points about how wonderful Williams Park is. I think that is the case, and clearly, you know, I would like to find another place for this pickleball court. There were a couple things, though, that I wanted to just kind of point out and talk about as we look forward to the presentation and going over the presentation that we're going to hopefully see still. The first one is that in the presentation, it's not overly clear, again, how many homes are affected, right? You know, the presentation drawing is very cropped, and it doesn't show that even on the gray path down to the park, that's a property line right there. And I'd like to note this in particular because the way that the drawing works, it goes right up to this wall, and there's actually about a 5 or 6 foot grade there. So there would be significant regrading and walls and things needed for that area to work. The other thing that I wanted to call out too is that the parking situation, based on like a minimal parking area, with the current parking lot, I know there's a proposed parking lot, but essentially there's about 9 spots there that are available in that parking lot. If you look for an 8 foot, you know, spot, there's about 3 on that lower section and about 5 on the top. And so if we were to do this in phases, there would be a serious parking problem until we could get to a later phase. Just another reason why I think that, and let alone the fact that, you know, it encroaches in on the monument and the road and the whole feeling to do a parking lot, even to accommodate the courts. And so I just wanted to add those points, and I think hopefully everyone can take them into consideration as we look at the proposal.
Thank you for sharing.
Carol Haley.
I know.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
My name is Carol Haley. I live at 1 Long Middle Hill Road, and I directly border Williams Park, the Williams Park driveway, as well as much of the recreational area where the tennis courts are. So much has already been said that I don't want to have to repeat it, but as a homeowner, right there bordering Williams Park, and knowing the noise that pickleball makes, it would be almost unbearable for the homeowner to listen to that pop, pop, pop 8 hours a day. And I also want to mention the fact that people do play tennis on those hard-true tennis courts. And playing tennis on those tennis courts and listening to the pop, pop, pop of the pickleball court, they're just not two compatible sports to have that close to each other. I want it to be known that I love pickleball. I'm from Naples, which is sort of the pickleball capital of the world, and we go to all the pickleball tournaments and so forth there, and it's just a great sport. However, I do think another place would be far more appropriate due to the noise and then to the parking, which would be another problem for 16 players on pickleball and 8 players on the hard-true tennis court. There's just no way that it can handle all the traffic. So I do hope that you all can look at some other places. Center School does come to mind because it's not being used any longer as a school. And I think of the location, the adequate parking, the fact that it's not impinging upon anybody's residential property, that it could be a very good alternative to Williams Park, which is really just a beautiful little gym. I have lived there since 1975, so I am very familiar with Williams Park, and I would love to see it stay as it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Drew Osgood.
Oh my goodness, this is Drew Osgood, 10 Winding Road. Been here for a while. Not very social. I could care less about pickleball or tennis for that matter. And yeah, I bought the property, 10 Winding Road. My property abuts to Williams Park. I know I bought the property and the tennis court was there, so I got no problem with that. I didn't buy a house next to an airport and complain about the airport noise. This past Sunday morning, it was a beautiful morning, at 7:38, I gotta listen to some John McEnroe wannabe shouting obscenities. My hearing's not that good. I could tell you what this guy was saying. I could repeat it here about the volume level he was probably producing. But since I got a lot of people in my corner here, I don't need to do that. So, here's the question for the panel. Do you want a pickleball court in your backyard? I know it's not going to be operated late at night, or at least it will not be, but it's 7:38 on a Sunday morning. I don't want to hear it. I'm opposed to it. I'll fight it. I hope my position is made really clear that this is not going to happen. It's a nature preserve, for Pete's sake. You understand how important nature is? Let me give an example. It's been said that if bees are decimated from this planet, then the human race will die. If the human race dies, bees will flourish. That's how insignificant people are. More importantly, that's how important nature is, and a nature preserve is. It needs to be adhered to. It's detrimental to the human race if you don't pay attention. You have everybody's attention. Yeah? No pickleball court at Williams Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
And,
Next.
Last but certainly not least, Ann DeSouza.
I would encourage you all to stay so that you can hear the presentation, because I think it'd be
I think that's a requirement. If you speak in public, you have to stay for the whole meeting.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Did we pass that law?
Because the presentation from what was attached to the agenda has changed, and
Yeah.
everybody needs to understand that. So I encourage you to stay if you have the time.
Good?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's really
You
fine.
took up part of her 3 minutes.
We're starting the timer now.
I'm Ann D'Souza, and I live at 183 Wiskaner Road, which is right next door to the park.
Which address? I'm sorry.
183.
Okay.
Yeah, so, or like literally right next door. And I can attest to the John McEnroe noises early in the morning. Sometimes I find them humorous, sometimes I don't. But I am opposed to the pickleball. Not pickleball itself, but I am opposed to the amount of noise. I'm opposed to the phases and the parking situation. I just think that there could be a better place for that sport, especially if it's growing the way that they say that it is. If you have these brand new pickleball courts, like what is going to stop a tournament from coming, or even a small one? And I also want to advocate for the people that come there for the hiking, the mountain biking, just to enjoy the outdoors. It's the only place in Brookfield without going to like Newtown where you can actually go and ride your bike. So you're talking about the tennis traffic, the pickleball traffic, but what about the people that are there to walk their dogs, ride their bikes, you know, just take kids for their walks? Like, I see it all the time. I know how much traffic actually goes in and out of Williams Park. I watch it every single day. So I am concerned just about the sheer amount of foot traffic going in and the encroachment of sports in a place that's supposed to be reserved for natural beauty. So I think that it sounds like a great sport. Let's put it somewhere where people can have more access to it and possibly grow it to something more. Just, I don't think Williams Park is the place for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you all for sharing. Moving right along to let's do the check presentation, because that's what you're here for, right? I'm sorry, the fire department.
We're here for 3 of them, but that's all right.
So, as part of the fire department, trying to move you to the top, let's go forward and do that. And is Kathy here? Hi.
So it's Kathy Creighton, Angela DeCuna, representing the Brookfield Town Center for Business, an organization that, well, Angelo and I were in favor of networking and growing the town center business probably 15 years ago. We started with scarecrow projects and this and that, whatever, assorted people. And then we formed a not-for-profit, Brookfield Town Center for Business, which hosted 3.5 block parties. One was COVID closed down. We've done 7 tree lightings and a couple of fire truck parades, which the Brookfield Fire Department has been obviously keenly a part of our success in that endeavor. We have a couple other volunteers that helped with the, for a couple of years with the block party, Ann and Peter. And we would like to donate our proceeds this year to the Brookfield Fire Company, who was a huge part of the block party this year. Both ends, just fantastic support arrangement and opportunity that you offered us on site. So we thank you very much. We're actually hoping to hand off the baton and have you guys take over the tree lighting and the parade. And we would like to offer you.
Well, on behalf of the Brookfield Fire Company, we appreciate this very generous donation to the fire company, and we will do our best to see what we can do about keeping the tradition going.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Don't cash it until Friday.
Two outstanding organizations for sure, so I couldn't think of more deserving recipients. Thank you so much for that kind contribution. All right, we will move over to item 6. I said bravo, right? Town of Brookfield Fire Watch Ordinance. I'd like to address this while the fire department and chief, especially since while you're still here. Over the years, there's been a fee schedule set by the fire department, and anytime a fire watch has been called, the fees are set by the department in conjunction with historically the first selectman. So the organization that needs the fire watch is then billed by the fire department, but recently it was brought to our attention that people were questioning the fee schedule, and so we need to set an ordinance so we have the town protected and fully covered by the fire marshal, who institutes or sets the watch, and then the fire department conducts the watch and charges accordingly. So it's an extra layer of protecting the town in order to establish policy. And there's a lot of talk about policy. We heard some of it earlier, but it's because over time we either didn't have policy or these things need to be updated and addressed, because somebody also alluded to the fact that we're operating in a much different Brookfield than we were even 5, 10, 20, 40 years ago. So we're trying to come along here across the board. So the draft of the ordinance is attached, and I just want to make sure you both have had a chance to look at that. There is something that I see needs to be adjusted. Let me just get there real quick. It's an easy fix and we have time. The purpose is to set the public hearing, which is what I'd like to do at our next meeting, or before our next meeting. But if you flip to the second page of the proposed ordinance, the draft, where it talks about fees, I think we need to remove where it says approved by the Brookfield Selectmen and just say approved by the Board of Selectmen based on the fire department fee schedule, so that the entire board is apprised to what the fee schedule actually is from the fire department. And then the final sentence where it says any payments for fire marshal staff, that we need clarification on that. I don't know what that's referring to, are to be made payable to the town of Brookfield. I think there might be a misdirection there. I think it should be the Brookfield Volunteer Fire Department staff, because you're actually conducting the watch.
Right, it goes right directly to the members.
Yeah.
And then who receives the payment?
Fire company.
Right, so this final sentence needs to be reworked. Are you guys tracking that?
Yep.
Okay.
If we're gonna do this ordinance, can we evolve the whole fee schedule for billing, not just the fire watch part? Because we run into with insurance companies that, because we're not an ordinance, sometimes the insurance companies, an auto accident,
Andy, could you come up and say that so people listening in?
So is
But
this a
is
separate
important.
issue from the fire marshal's call for a fire
Well,
watch?
you're using part of the fee schedule. What I'm asking to is use that ordinance to adapt the whole fee schedule.
Yeah.
It
I
just
think-
add it into the.
But the other fees you're talking about are not called for by the fire marshal, right?
No, they would be called for, by us, by.
So I think that should be separate.
Okay, I was just saying, if you
This
added the
is-
fee schedule, almost insurance companies wanna see is that the fee schedule is somewhere in an ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and
I
we're
see
missing
what
out
you're
on
saying.
revenue,
I
we're
see
missing
what
out on
you're
revenue,
saying.
yeah. But if we add the fee schedule into the ordinance with all of our signatures on it, that would be, I think.
Dennis, do you think that that should be a separate ordinance?
I do
Yeah.
too. Just so people are clear, the fire department often responds to accidents and spends a lot of money and a lot of work and a lot of time. If we had these fees in place as an ordinance set on our books, the fire department could then bill the insurance companies of the involved parties to recover their costs.
Correct.
And it's a lot of revenue
And
that they
actually,
could get.
part of our operating budget every year is $25,000 this year.
Yeah.
Is money we get from, that's
The
counted in our
insurance.
town budget, we deduct it out of our request.
I think we have to
from
be
fire.
careful about building fees into ordinances, which is why the
No,
numbers
no, no,
aren't
you
in
would just,
here.
yeah, you would just say fees
Yeah,
as
fees
set by
as-
the Board of
as
Selectmen from
posted,
time
yeah.
to time.
Yeah, that we,
It
whatever
would
we sign
protect
every
all
year.
other fees,
Right.
such as this, but this
Correct.
is a fire marshal specific
We all pay
thing,
a
so.
rider in our insurance, in your
Yeah.
auto insurance,
All right.
homeowner's insurance.
Right.
Well, let's
and-
talk about that and
Absolutely.
we'll
Sounds
put
good.
that on the list for
Appreciate it.
to do. So this first page, just so you guys know, is the authorization of the organization to allow the town to host the fire watch.
Right.
So,
So can we make the motion pending the changes on page 2? Okay.
well, right.
Yep.
And there's time still to make any other changes because we're just making the motion to set the public hearing. And I'd like to make that motion that we hold a public hearing on a proposed draft of the fire watch ordinance for Monday the 5th, 2023, September 5th at 6:45 in this room.
I'll second.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Because we can even make changes then to the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Exactly. Any further discussion?
No,
All in favor?
yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Andy. We will do the emergency management director next, which is item 6, Charlie. So we have to discuss here the job description, which was posted to the town website, and thank you, gentlemen, for your cooperation in getting Ms. Palmer appointed as the interim. As we talked about in a previous meeting, our former fire marshal, who was the acting EMD, left a town as a town employee. So we also need to set up the stipend for our emergency management director. We are recipient of the EMPG grant through Demis Region 5, and I've provided, not part of the packet, but on the side, this list from CCM, which covers how much other towns across the state are providing for their EMD, Emergency Management Director. There's no hard, fast solution to this. Every town is doing it their own way. Some towns have it built in as a certain percentage of their salary or an allocation of their salary specifically for the EMD. Some towns, I tried looking for, did you get this, Steve? This is what
Yeah.
I'm talking about.
Yep.
The, some towns of similar sizes are paying very, very well, and some towns much larger are paying a lot less. So it's kind of all over the map, and again, there's really no hard, fast solution. My recommendation would be that we provide an $8,000 a year stipend for the emergency management director.
If I understand correctly, if we apply for this properly, half of the stipend would be payable by Demis and the state.
Yes. So you have to spend the money to get the money, and it's at a 50% match.
Are we
Do
looking?
we-
I'm
I'm
sorry, go
sorry,
ahead.
do we have to make a recommended motion so that we can discuss it, or can we discuss before we make the recommended motion?
I'll go ahead and move that we,
They're two different subjects. One is appointing the emergency manager.
no, the appointment will come later.
Yeah.
I wanted to discuss the job description and the stipend first.
Right, okay.
And
Well,
make
that's
a
not what C
recommendation for
is.
an appointment at the
Okay.
end.
Why don't you make the recommendation?
Okay.
I'd like to make the motion that we approve the job description as written and set the stipend at $8,000 annual for the emergency management director.
I'll second that.
Only
for
discussion, how did you come to $8,000?
So again, I took a
I know
look
you looked at these.
where we are in town size and work that's to be done. So again, because this is a stipend, we could have, you know, a period of time where nothing happens. But that doesn't mean that that director shouldn't stay involved in training and.
Well, they still do a lot of work.
Yeah.
Even if they do their job properly, they're ready when an emergency comes. But it could go 10 years without actually
Right.
implementing, but that's not the point. The
But
point
we
is
have-
to be ready.
We haven't done an asset inventory in a long time. We don't know how many cots we have. The plan hasn't been updated and it's long overdue. And if we get it in on time and it's what they need, they've also revamped their format for the emergency management plan itself. There's new aspects to it which include a lot around behavioral health and people in mental health crises. So we're experiencing different facets of emergency management across town that we haven't seen before. And the police chief and the fire chief and Wayne, I thought I saw Wayne here, but our emergency managers can speak to if need be, but you're all apprised of
There-
things that are happening. But there's
There-
different forms of emergency management is what I'm getting at.
There are 3 pages of cities and towns. Most of them are full-time positions, but the ones that have stipends, I looked at it, and similar size towns, one is $5,700, one is $7,500, one is $19,000. So they're really all over the place. It's really, there's no real average. So I would think that 8 is fair. It's not
And
the lowest, but it's not the highest.
4,000 of that would be reimbursed.
And there is a state reimbursement. You have to apply for a reimbursement program.
Well, are we also looking at the assistant emergency management directors and creating a stipend for those
That's a good
positions also?
question. I was actually going to start for the first at least 6 months to a year with just the director and
Mhm.
see what that individual recommends. We may not need that. We might need 3, we might need 1, we might need 4. I mean, I just
You
don't
want to have further
know.
discussion on that? I'm
Right.
fine with that. Where would we get the $8,000?
So in the budget for this year, we've got 9350, Marcia?
Yes, we have 9335 or something like that, that is in the general fund budget for just the matching portion. The grant portion would go through the grant fund. So the 8,000, I would prefer to have it come out of the general fund, and then we pay for other expenses out of the grant fund, just because I don't like to have an employee, a continuing employee, paid with a grant which we may or may not get.
I don't disagree with that. So you're saying actually don't take it out of this year's budget, take it out of the general fund? Is that what you're saying?
It's in the general fund, so we would still, when we do the grant application, we would do a total of 18,000 of expenses. If we spent the whole thing, we would allocate the non-payroll to the grant fund and the payroll to the general fund. If we said, oh, we can't think of any expenses to spend, and we only had $8,000, then we would do an adjustment later, but for 4 and 4. But
So you're saying take it, it's not coming out of this year's budget?
it's in this year's budget. Yeah, the
It is.
9,300 and something is in this year's budget. Yes.
But to be clear, we were awarded the grant for 22-23, but they run their calendar on the federal year.
Yeah,
So on
right.
October 1st, it expires. So for which month are we in now? August and September, we will be reimbursed for if we commit the stipend starting this month.
Right.
And then we have to apply, but again, it's back paid. You have to spend it in order to be reimbursed. And this is the list of towns who are currently receiving the EMPG grant through the different regions across the state. And there's very few left that haven't yet applied for the grant, but they're trying to get every town on board because towns
good
are
idea.
realizing that, God forbid a macro burst comes through their town, they need to be ready.
Yeah, because in the macro burst, we literally had the fire department, the police department, emergency management directors literally working 60, 70, 80 hours a week for almost a month to manage that. And there was very little recompense for them.
And not only that, but they are working within their lanes, and the last
Right.
thing I wanna do in an emergency is tap either the chiefs on the shoulder to say, hey, can you manage the whole emergency when they've got their own things going on?
Right, no, I
So,
agree.
I think this is really important, and it's time to, again, get town to come along in the way that it should. This position has been advertised, so, the motion's on the floor for the stipend set at $8,000 and the job description as presented. Is there any
Made the
further
motion.
discussion?
Harry seconded it.
I second it, yeah.
All right, any further discussion?
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. And finally, I think this is the last item for our emergency responders, but the police captain employment agreement. I know that the police commissioner is here with our chief of police, Sultan. If you gentlemen want to speak to this, to give a little bit of background.
John Puglisi, Chief of Police. Just a quick background on the position. The current administration for the police department is made up of 3 administrators, captain, major, and chief. I learned a year and a half ago, after taking over as chief, that we were understaffed as far as the administration went, and when I spoke to the staffing issues with the general department, the board and the police commission have addressed that. One of the things that was not addressed that is definitely needed was the appointment of a fourth administrator or second captain. In 2007, then Chief Montgomery had commissioned a study through Randy Frank Consulting to review the current makeup of the department and the needs of the agency for the administration of the department.
What year was that, John?
2006.
Okay.
The recommendation of the consultant was that there would be this particular setup of chief, 4 administrators. There were different titles, but the chief, major, and then 2 captains to be divided up to workload more efficiently and to take into consideration back in 2007 the fact that we were going to be approaching, or it mentions accreditation, but it hadn't been. The second part of this need was the accreditation. The last 2 years I've gone before the Board of Finance asking for just under $20,000 for a consultant to come in for accreditation. We're currently certified an accreditation of Tier 1. We sent our records clerk to some training to assist us with that. There are some union issues with changing of the job description, and there is currently not a stipend available to pay a union member to do this added work. Hence, last year, I made a request to the police commission to add the 4th administrator to address the needs of, like I just mentioned, the added responsibilities for the administration of the department, and to pretty much address the accreditation issue. Accreditation is ongoing, it doesn't go away. The law is the law, and it gives a certain amount of time to get to these levels. There would be some shuffling of job descriptions, and I don't really want to get into it in a public meeting what our jobs are going to do, but this 4th administrator is definitely needed. We had the police commission assist us with interviews, and the job description as it stands now would be patrol commander.
John, could you just maybe touch on it? It's really a lateral, financially, it's a lateral that there's already money in the budget, that it's not going to be
We're not asking the town for any more money.
Right.
We're simply moving salary from non-union to a union salary line item
Right.
within our budget.
Okay. I just think the public would like to know that. that it's not gonna be, it's not like we're hiring another employee with benefits.
So just so it's clear to everybody, the code allows for the police commission to establish this position within their own purview.
I believe it's the town,
yeah.
town charter does speak to.
54-5
Police
Delta,
commission appointing, promoting.
54-6,
So we are not adding any employees. What we're doing is changing the position of one of our employees and moving them to captain and taking on the additional responsibilities for accreditation, the other things that we've known we've had to do this for many years, right? In next year's budget, it might affect it slightly because that salary is higher, right?
Right, we're gonna promote a sergeant to captain, which is.
Right.
What you have the contract in front of you, and then we'll be promoting a corporal to sergeant, all within the union, all within salary, items that are in budget.
But at some point then, we're gonna be adding an officer to replace.
Next year, I'll be talking to you about adding officers.
That was my point. We're gonna be
That's not
talking about.
because we're promoting a captain.
Yeah. Okay. You know, I've talked to John, I've talked to Zoltan, the chairman of this. The requirements of the new Police Accountability Act are legend. It's unbelievable the amount of work that needs to be done. We cannot remain where we are right now. We're paying a consultant $20,000 a year. The new captain would take over some of those responsibilities, split between him and Peter Frangs, is that correct, right? And this is something we've needed to do for many years, and now with these requirements for our accreditation, it can affect our insurance, it can affect our liability. We have no choice but to meet all of these requirements. We have to do it, and we have a very short time period in which to do it. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
So I would be in favor of this.
Are you saying that the consultant will not be needed? Because I don't think that's true.
No, I think we're gonna need to keep the consultant for how long, John?
We have it in this year's budget.
Right?
My plan was to move forward with having the job broken up between the administration so that I wouldn't have to ask for that funding anymore. But
Right.
right now, we're still in a position where it's a budgeted item and it's definitely gonna be needed for at least one more.
Right.
Budget.
Because we have to get people up to speed. The consultant is an expert in all of this documentation and processing, so.
We are definitely ahead of the curve as far as the levels of accreditation that we are currently tier 1, which we had you have until the end of this year, but our deadline was pushed up to April.
Right.
We have until the end of 2024
Right.
for tier 2, and then 2026 for tier 3, which is when we're gonna have to discuss some building changes.
Okay. So the plan is, as we bring this new captain up to speed, the consultant will be needed less and less. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm all set with this.
Who's taking over the traffic?
Taking over traffic, that will be in my budget this year.
Okay, so just so it's clear also on the financing of this, you're not asking for any more money. This is coming out of Hyde in this year's budget. Okay. All right.
I'm all set.
I'll make the motion that we approve the employment agreement between the town of Brookfield and Mr. Officer Tony Augustine.
I'll second it.
Did you both have a chance to read the contract?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm fine with it.
Any discussion on the contract?
No, I'm fine with it.
Any further questions for Chief?
Nope.
None.
All right. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much, John. Okay. The moment you've all been waiting for. We're going to return to the top of the agenda, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. But I do want to give our new Parks and Rec Director the opportunity to step us through the steep grant application and the work that I had asked her to do. But I want to preface that by saying, first of all, I was under the impression that the Conservation Commission did talk about the steep grant. At least I was informed this morning that was in your minutes, and I haven't had a chance to check those minutes, but steep was addressed in the meeting. I don't know if any questions were asked, what that conversation entailed, but I just, for the record, want to make it clear that the steep was brought up at that meeting, or so I've been told. It is probably my fault, and I will own that, and I apologize for not conferring with the Historic District Commission and the Conservation Commission. I have no excuses there, other than the fact that the grant was announced on July 12th, and the application was due on the 18th. We didn't get together. I first sat down with Greg independently, and we went over the list of things that, you know, where could we apply this steep grant. There are certain stipulations of the grant itself, and if you haven't looked at that application, I would encourage you to do that as well. It'll put you quick to sleep tonight if you want to do it when you're in bed looking for a quick way to go to sleep. But it has to be shovel ready is primarily the first thing. And we've also hired a new land use director who's not here tonight, but we have her on agenda to set another public hearing for a different ordinance, so I have to dial her in later, so she may be listening. Hi, Laura. But as part of her onboarding, we've spent time going around town together. And one of the things I charged her to do was identify space. And specifically, we looked first at Cadigan. So I also want to let you all know that. There, somebody mentioned, I think it was Lou. Is there a Lou in the audience? Yes, sir. I think you were the one to have mentioned the amount of space at Cadigan. I don't know where you came up with that number, but there is no room at Cadigan. It appears that there's room, but there's a septic tank there, and we can't build pickleball courts over it. Plus, you have a neighbor, right? So the pop that I'm hearing all about, I'm assuming wouldn't be a pleasant treat there either. I also wanted to just mention that this attempt to submit an application, which we haven't done at all. That's why we're here tonight, because the board has to hear it. I am one person. And also for the public, if you're going to email me, which I've got my whole folder here, I would ask you to email the entire Board of Selectmen. I am just one vote on this panel, so they all need to be informed. But again, it is just preliminary, it's conceptual. This seemed to fit the bill at first glance because we have a tennis court there. And when our former Parks and Rec director, Ms. Knox, who was here for decades, you know, when I first met her, she spoke about upgrades to Williams Park, which are needed, okay? That parking lot is in disrepair. There's been talk about removing the shed and the old barn that's there to potentially create more parking. There's no restroom facility. We are not in compliance with ADA requirements. What if there's somebody wheelchair bound who wants to play tennis on the clay courts? Like, we have no way for that individual to get there right now. So while I appreciate it, it is, you know, we have very limited space, and also for the public that doesn't know, I was successful in helping secure 45 acres at Ledges Preserve to be protected in perpetuity, so that's a good news story. I am very concerned about the environment. Please don't get me wrong, okay? So I was looking to see, you know, how we could accommodate everybody, right? Like, I've heard nothing but pickleball, especially out of COVID. Like, while social might equal noisy, it's also an outlet for people who don't enjoy listening to birds, you know? So we have to find a balance here, you know, and I hope that we can all come to some kind of agreement. Again, I think at the end of Laura's presentation, there's two Lauras, our Parks and Rec director and our new land use director, so let's not be confused here. She's amended these slides since the ones that were attached, so we've come up with a new suggestion as well, and I'd ask my board to really kind of understand, and it's a hasty kind of thing, but it's because we have such very limited reaction time. And maybe the solution is we just don't apply this year at all, but I think that would be doing a huge disservice to the town. So I wanted to say that before she started. Thank you for listening.
Don't like throw like tomatoes at me or anything.
You want to take the mic, Laura?
I do. I just want to hand out the new.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I stapled on the wrong side. We have a new copier. I'm still learning how to use it the right way. So.
Two demerits.
And this matches that one.
Yes. Yes.
Thanks.
Everything now
Color.
matches. My red light. How do you turn the light?
The right-hand button.
Oh, all right. I think we're good.
Don't make fun of me. I'm learning
I
technology.
can't tell from here, it's hard.
Okay. Hello. She said it was red.
Yeah, let me just, how do you know it's green? It's either nothing or red.
I think red.
Red is.
All right.
There you go.
So I do have a couple left over.
I would just make sure you talk up because of the fan, just so people can hear.
I could do that. I feel like Oprah again. Like, come on.
You get a car? You get a car?
Okay. All right. I don't want to take up a lot of your time. To all of you that are here to speak up about pickleball and your concerns about the location of Williams Park, I do just want to say thank you. It's good to hear from everyone. I like to hear everyone's point of view. So working together as a town is really important. So I'm glad that we're all here together to hear the decision and have that input. So with that being said, yes, this presentation has been updated since what had gone out on Friday. So bear with us here. Thank you. Appreciate your help this afternoon. So what we're going to go over is the eligibility of the STEEP grant, the terms and condition, the priority project areas. We have two options. The first one, as you all know, was Williams Park, and the second as the Town Hall campus. And we'll review the master plan that was already discussed in 2021 in our resolution. All right, so for the eligibility of the STEEP grant, which stands for Small Town Economic Assistance Program, they do award $30 million. There's 116 towns eligible. If you do the math out, that's $58 million. So do the math. We're kind of in a crunch, and we really want to make sure that we're able to take advantage of this grant. And not all towns would get, the 500,000, but that's what we would love to get for this project. It is for capital projects only, which includes studies in engineering. Design costs are not eligible, which we'll go into a little bit later. And we can apply, even though we did apply in 2022 for a STEEP grant project for the Water Pollution Control Authority. We're still in the time frame, so we can still apply for this grant, that being said. And eligible projects, look at that, second one in, recreation. Woohoo! So that's something that we are going to start taking advantage of, and the guidelines are on the STEEP website. As Tara had mentioned, if you really want to have a great read tonight, you're welcome to read that. And in discussion with our department heads and what have you, we discussed what was the need for the town and determined that pickleball being such a demand, that this was the project that we would like to pursue for this grant. Can you go back one for, terms and conditions. So, as you see right there, the deadline is August 18th. We found out about it in mid-July. So it was really, let's hit the pot and that sounds really bad. Hit the oil.
Get going on something.
So, and it gets awarded in September 2023. We can get up to $500,000, and a town match must be committed within 30 days of award notice. Up to 20% town match preferred. We did speak to our lovely Marcia over here and found out the money that we can use for that, and it would have to be the first Selectwoman resolution required, which is something that we were looking for tonight. Because of the time crunch that we have, it needs to be voted on. All right, priority project area. So priority project area means it has to be shovel ready or near shovel ready, which is defined as the Board of Selectmen approval, consistent with the plan of conservation and development, project plans and specs established, and all local funding secured. So the last three bullets there, we're improving quality of life, of course your health improvement right there, and infrastructure. So we don't have to hit on all of these, but we do certainly meet some of these areas. So option one, this was the master plan that was thrown together relatively quickly with the help of our Freeman companies. This looks like we would be keeping the tennis courts as is and adding the 4 pickleball courts right there, expanding the parking lot for 34
However,
spaces.
if I could just,
Sure.
It could be some of this, it could be all of this, it could be none of this. These are things to be determined. This is not the hard fast. This was just a very quick conceptual design. So say, for example, very hypothetical, okay, this is not what I want. we retain these clay courts, which, oh, by the way, cost the town $8,000 a year to maintain, and we have 10 families signed up through Parks and Rec with official passes. Whether or not other people come and go or the gates left open, I'm sure that's happening, so we don't really have a good handle on how many people actually use those clay courts. But let's just say we got rid of the 4 new courts on the grassy area, like that wasn't part of the plan. We could turn those 2 tennis courts into hard courts and line them for pickle as well, okay? So there's a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Just because this drawing was rendered doesn't mean that this is what we wanted to present. These are just things to think about, and, you know, I get it that we don't want pickleball there, I'm hearing, but, you know, at our first conversations, that's kind of where our heads were.
And the next slide shows the different phases.
Oh, I'm sorry, you were gonna talk about the parking lot and.
Oh, it was just expanding the parking lot. We, as you see, we removed the old barn there, the old shed, and used actually, I was speaking to one of the members of the Conservation Commission this morning, and she had recommended using a compost restroom, which I thought was a fantastic idea. And really just working around this parking lot a little bit more to allow for more parking, to allow, even say we don't do, you know, this kind of plan in the future, allow for more hiking spaces, or, you know, people for hiking and other activities at the park. So that was the first option here, and then the next slide goes into the different phases. So
I think as far as the ADA pathway to the bottom portion of the park, I think that's very important. And Dennis, that's something I haven't had a chance to talk to you about. Legal, whether we have, or the requirements to.
Anytime you upgrade town property like this, you are required to meet the existing ADA requirements.
So if we did anything to this park, we would have to put the ADA path in?
Yeah, the ADA people would be all over us.
So that might be something we can't avoid, and I heard somebody talking about the grade and everything in there.
It's pretty steep going down to the courts.
Laura may know better than me, but my assumption is that's probably a condition of the grant.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if the state didn't make that a condition.
Yeah, they usually do, you're right.
Yeah, and then that's what we were talking about and trying to figure out a way. Initially, we actually had the trail kind of on the left-hand side, but again, it's, as Tara had mentioned, it's conceptual. It's a fluid plan right now, and we were just trying to find a way to get all of the things that we were looking for into one plan here. So phase 1 was the pickleball courts there, but as Tara mentioned, it doesn't have to be. It could be the walking path and the tennis courts there getting reconfigured.
And the black line here is the stone wall and also the property line with the neighbor. Is that correct at the top?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you put the GIS look at the park on there, or was this it?
No, I didn't, because I was just trying to focus on this one spot. I know there was the discussion of it being part of the Gursky and.
Yeah, so I did want to just touch on it quickly as well, the history of the park. So there's 2 addresses actually that associate with the park, Williams Park, not Gursky Homestead. So, you know, we call it a park. Who has the ownership? There's a really kind of long history of how things have unraveled there. And before electronics and, you know, really good legitimate records keeping, there are no records. So it's kind of a mystery in a lot of ways, but we've done a lot of research, and there's been a substantial amount of things that have happened over time there. I don't know if you all are interested in hearing that, but I have that information.
I'd be interested in seeing that. We don't have to do it now, but I'd be interested.
Yeah, so this is what Greg pulled together. So in '89, there was a war memorial sign that went up. In '90, there was electric power that was brought onto the property. In '98, the Eagle Scouts diverted water to make trail improvements. In 2001, the garage was rebuilt with a new bay added. In 2002, trees were cleared, wetlands were filled, and the tennis courts were built. In 2016, park signs were upgraded. In 2018, there was a boardwalk that was built off-site and installed somewhere.
Yeah, it's further up.
So, you know, have all these things been approved to the Historic District Commission and, you know, conservation, and it's short of going back and looking at every single minutes throughout time. If there is a record of them, maybe it should be called Mystery Park. But there are a lot of great things that happen there, and I'm very sensitive to everything you're saying, and everything that that I'm hearing. And when she flips to the next slide, there's an option 2.
Oh, not yet. No,
Oh,
it keeps
sorry,
going.
Laura.
Keeps on putting the salt on the wound here. No, so if you switch over to the next slide, it just goes more into, and this is applicable to both options. So, but this particular one was already included in our long-range capital list, which was included prior to me. This was a project that was something that our department was looking at. The capital cost estimate, so for the 4 courts, landscaping, improved drainage, minimize scope to in the $500,000 estimate by a professional engineer firm. Letters of support, I've got over 40 letters of support by our pickleball community, as well as the following listed up here. The town match, as I already mentioned with Marcia, we found out where that would come from, and really what it comes down to is the next step, and after this, we'll bring it to the Board of Finance on Wednesday and see if it gets approved there. But the target completion date would be summer 2024.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, hypothetically, we don't do pickle here and we apply the steep grant somewhere else for this year. If steep grant exists next year, we could potentially do a Williams Park upgrade and try to apply for the parking lot and a restroom facility and the ADA path. So, you know, this isn't completely tossing upgrades to Williams Park aside if we don't do pickle.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was kind of more of a question, but
Yeah.
also a statement.
Yeah. Well, the steep grant comes out pretty regularly, so you can apply every single time. My question is, where would the town match come from? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
There was a grant that was awarded for the Still River Greenway.
Do you want me to take it, Laura?
What's that?
Do you want me to take it?
Sure, go ahead, Marcia. I've got it in this pile.
So we had in the 2024 budget, we had a grant for the Still River Greenway, and we did not get that grant. But as part of that, there was $64,000 for design that wasn't covered by the grant. So that $64,000, there's ARPA money that, we don't need it for the Still River Greenway because now it's going to be a regional endeavor through WestCog. We also had some money for another study for Still River Greenway, and the ARPA money, $24,500. Again, both of those we don't need with this WestCog initiative. And then Parks and Rec, with the changeover in personnel, didn't spend their whole budget last year. In the 2023, we could transfer $11,500 from 2023 to capital non-recurring, and the total would be $100,000.
Very convenient. Works right. Okay.
However, that ARPA funding, we still have outstanding questions for council regarding, do we take it back to town meeting for reallocation, et cetera? So
That's a good question.
ARPA's new to everybody, obviously, so there's no hard fast, and we're
To be safe, we probably should. Then you wouldn't have any problems, even if it's not required.
right.
Okay. All right, thank you, Laura.
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
All right, so, thank you. So option 2, Town Hall Campus Master Plan. This was actually submitted as a DEP grant application in 2021. Unfortunately, they were denied this grant, and there hasn't been any funding for this ever since. So revisiting this could be a really great opportunity for this location. So, if you go to the next one, and then right there, got a little tiny court over there for pickleball. There's 4. And that yellow walking path would go all the way down. So additional information, there's the 4 pickleball courts. We could improve our access and accessibility for ADA compliance. We would be able to upgrade our bathroom, thank goodness. Maximize the scope to not exceed $500,000. Same town match as option 1, and next steps as well for option 1. So this looks like a positive option for all people involved.
Also, I believe that the walking path will also allow people to walk down to the gazebo.
Yes.
Or the bandstand, or whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
So, because right now, there isn't really a walkway to that. You have to walk through the grass or whatever, I
The-
believe.
yeah,
it's
so
gravel. It's
there's
gravel
a
right
staircase that goes down. So
Right.
when you're facing it all the way on the left, and then there's also the winding walkway
Right,
which goes
right.
through the playground area, which
Right.
is in absolute need of an update.
Right, but this is a direct one. direct down.
Exactly. Yeah. So there would be a staircase there, and then the walking path as well, going right to it. You'd probably have a little concrete pad around too to add some bleachers and whatnot. But we just threw together very quickly, so it's a rough plan. But that's the idea.
And one of the things I like to mention is under steep grants, the state looks much more favorably upon steep grant applications if the town is putting some money up. You can apply with no town money, but your opportunity to win goes down significantly. They want the towns to have equity in the project.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
And the town of Southbury recently opened their pickleball courts that they used ARPA funds to
Really?
create.
Yep.
I think they have 4 courts, Laura, or 6?
4.
At $130-something thousand. So we want to talk about pricing, which we haven't gotten yet. Although you did you for pickle at Williams?
Yes. So it's just a matter of. So we actually worked with the engineers, and they were able to create each phase within the $500,000 scope. So they were able to do the tennis court reconstruction and the pickleball courts all under $500,000. So I think absolutely for our phase 1 here, doing the courts and that walkway should fall in that same
And
price
maybe
range,
the
if not
bathroom
more.
upgrade?
You could probably sneak the bathroom upgrade in there as well. Yeah. That's just something I would have to discuss
yeah.
further.
I mean, to me, this is a win-win because we're now putting it we're putting it into an athletic facility.
Absolutely.
Where there already is gonna be noise, there's gonna be people there. People can come and watch, whatever, but I think it's kind of putting both views here at ease.
There's more parking, it's a sports complex as it is. There's a lot of reasons why this is a good space, and in the rain this morning, Laura and I actually walked the property. It looks like it's calling for pickleball. So,
you could hear the dinking already.
I'm in favor of applying for the grant, and putting it here instead of at Williams.
And also remember, we can apply for the grant, and then if it doesn't meet the requirements of our residents, we could just say, I'm sorry, thank you, but we're not gonna accept the grant. So I'm in favor of moving forward with this. I'm much, much more in favor of using town hall.
It hasn't gone before the Parks and Rec Commission yet.
Yeah.
So we're kind of, any motion we make would be pending approval of the Parks
Right.
and Rec Commission. And we haven't talked about the engineering design, which needs $2,500. The one for the Williams Park was done pro bono.
So we would
and
have to,
I don't think we can ask them for another free favor.
no, so that we would take an allocation of $2,500 out of the match, right?
Where would that come from? It would come from,
We had talked about that coming because we didn't know the ARPA rules yet. We're still waiting. And we don't have the final numbers on Parks and Rec that we would take it out of,
Laura's salary.
Yeah, we would take it out of the 64,000 design fees for
Talking
Still
about the other
River
Laura, so it's
Greenway.
fine.
It would go there.
I'm also fine with that.
And we do have money for the comfort stations at Town Hall. Are those the same ones we're talking about?
Mhm. Yes.
In this year's budget, we have $29,000.
Okay.
So that could be our.
So we could combine the two and maybe
Right.
get a grant to pay for most of it.
that's actually a really good idea. I forgot about
Yeah.
that.
And that was the idea, was kind of going off of a project which we're already starting to develop.
Yeah.
So building it up a little bit too.
Yeah.
All right.
Do we have to have a recommended motion?
I would like to do that because I have to sign
Yeah.
the resolution
Yeah.
for the grant
Yeah.
application.
I was just gonna say, I didn't see
So
them.
if you go back to the resolution side,
That's the next one over.
okay. Here she left option either 1 or 2. I think we just cross out option 1, which was the Williams Park, and try to go for the steep grant to move pickleball to Town Hall campus.
Yeah.
I did want to say though, because I heard a lot of conversation about how much space we have. That is
don't.
falsely inaccurate, okay? Or grossly inaccurate. It's false.
What's falsely inaccurate means it's accurate, right?
What? Double negative. So, we've got a lot to get after with the construction of the new school. We lost a soccer field and 2 baseball fields. We've we potentially may need to upgrade or build a new police department. And the town, from what I understand, has been saving this property in case we need it down the road. So to say we have space is the furthest thing from the truth. And people will say, well, just put it at center school. The municipal building committee has been charged to evaluate the future use of center school because the Board of Ed just is dumping it back over to the town with many years of neglect, essentially. So center school itself needs a lot. And there's a lot of question marks right now, even just to do the minimum of the painting and the paving and ADA compliance stuff and janitors and sending utilities to the building and upgrading the air conditioning and the sprinkler systems. I mean, that in itself could be millions of dollars, and that's just the minor stuff. So we can't just say we're going to give somebody the key to go into the gymnasium and play pickleball. It doesn't work that way.
The neglect with the center school was based on the fact that we were going to be building a brand-new school, and the thought process was, let's not put hundreds of thousands of dollars into a building that we're not going to be using in 3 or 4 years. So it's not like it was.
But you still have to maintain your buildings.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, I'm not in favor of putting this at center school until we decide what we're doing at center school, what it's going to cost, what facilities we want there. I don't want to put a pickleball court there and then we decide, oh, we really need a parking lot. No, I think the town hall option. And Tara is correct. In town, it looks, you go to Cadigan, it looks like there's tons of property there. There is not. The septic field covers a huge portion of it. And so there's very limited space in other areas in town. I think this is a good compromise.
Why don't you make a motion?
So, did you gentlemen have a chance to read the resolution? Because I'm going to
Yes.
have to
Fine
have
with
our
that.
town clerk certify with my
Yep.
signature on behalf of the Board of Selectmen.
Yes, I have read it.
So
I'm
I'd like
fine
to
with
make a motion to waive the reading of the resolution,
it. I'll second that.
and then I would like to make, oh,
I will
any
third that.
discussion on waiving the reading?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So what was the recommended motion? What are we doing here? We have
I-
to
I
get,
didn't see one on
it would
here.
be pending
Parks and
Board
Rec
of,
Commission
Finance
approval.
approval.
and the approval of the $2,500 of the Board of Finance, or, Marcia?
Oh.
$2,500 transfer.
A $2,500 transfer within the capital non-recurring fund from,
The Greenway.
the Still River Greenway design, which is, project number, SG 24C, to a new project for this.
So does that need Board of Finance approval for the transfer?
Yes.
Yeah, it's your department.
Okay. Before I make any motion, you had 4 pickleball courts there. We haven't had this engineer designed, so it may be able to accommodate more, it might be less. We just don't know what we don't know right now. So the approval of this motion pending Parks and Rec Commission and Board of Finance doesn't have the finite details of what the engineering design will produce.
Yeah,
I
but
just
we still
wanted
have
to
time
be
to go
understood.
back. We don't have to do it, but we should move forward. If this grant application is due on the 18th and we want to run it before Board of Finance, we should make an approval tonight, right?
So
for
the
you to
engineering
sign?
firm will have their design, the conceptual design back up by Friday.
Right, so that's great. I would say move ahead.
All right, so I'd like to make the motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the first selectwoman to sign with the town clerk the resolution, and we move forward with option 2, which is to put apply for the steep grant at the town hall campus, pending Board of Parks and Rec Commission approval and the Board of Finance approval for the funding of the conceptual,
Design.
Design.
right.
I'll
To
second.
Engineering
come out of
design.
project SG 24C in the amount of $2,400.
2,500.
2,500. I had 20,
I'll second that.
just so
Oh.
we know where it's coming from.
And, well, that would come later. He's suggesting that this has to go to special town meeting because of the dollar amount, which it would, but would that be before we apply for the grant?
No, I think you can,
Within 30 days after, if we get awarded, we have 30 days to secure all
funding, which means we should have a special
Right.
town meeting within 30 days
Oh,
of the
right.
award.
Yeah,
Because
so
we
we
have
don't
to
have to
commit
do
the
that.
funds. Well, we'd have to do, oh, man. Can we do it at the primary? Okay,
You could set a special town meeting now, and if you don't get it, then just cancel it.
Yeah, you set a town meeting for the October Board of Selectmen meeting. The awards are gonna be by September 30th, so we'll know then. And then we just say a special meeting on the Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:45.
Typically a few weeks late from the time.
I'm sorry?
They're typically a few weeks late with the announcement, but they might be less.
Then we do it November, we just do it within 30 days. If we don't have it by the October meeting, we just table it till November and set another BOS meeting.
well, the public hearing would have to be, or the town meeting would have to be noticed, and it costs money and all that, so I don't wanna table a town meeting. So
Well, you have to,
November,
Greg, you have to accept within 30 days, right?
You have to secure town funding within 30 days.
Okay. So if they meet their deadline September 30th, we have to do it in October. If they're late, we would then do it in November.
So can't we have it at our October 1 our first meeting in October prior to the?
Yeah.
but there, if they postpone for some reason, there's certain stipulations to, publishing the special town meeting, so I don't know how we
I mean,
shift
we don't
that
really
at
have
that
control of
point,
that.
I think you're forced to have to
You
set
don't
it
have a choice.
for October, and then if they are late, then you
Then
have to
you
go through
delay.
the cancellation process,
Ugh,
Yeah.
okay.
and then have to reset
That's
it
right.
Be-
for November. I guess it would
Right.
be reset at your October meeting for
For
November.
Correct.
You got all that, Cynthia?
Okay.
We're adding
Be-
that to the
Before
back
we vote,
end
this is
of-
your last chance. You're sure you don't want the pickleball at Williams Square? Okay.
Very cute, Harry. Okay. Any discussion? Oh, no,
None.
did somebody second that?
I seconded.
Okay, thank you. And no further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you,
Thank you, Laura.
appreciate it.
And Greg, you're the next presenter for the Lotzit. All right.
Where are you going? No, 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 no. Sit down. Sit down.
Do we want to take a quick
Yeah,
recess?
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I make a motion to
I
recess for
second.
5 minutes.
All those in favor?
There you go.
We have two. The answer is 5 minutes.
Thank you, Kara. Yeah.
It's not your fault. I own that. I mean,
Calling everybody.
I really did think that it was a great idea because of everything Mary told me about the ideas of upgrading the park anyway, and that we already had a tennis court there. I've never played pickleball. I don't even know what it is, so, but I understand all the concerns.
Logistically, get those courts laid down there, take out the property lines, all that stuff. Way, way harder. Something else really quick. I'm not saying it doesn't need upgrade, I'm just saying what's appropriate. Do you want a long list of violations?
Hey, how you going, Marty? How are you?
Including this one I was.
Yeah, we have to resolve that. I'm just gonna send it out.
Tamara was
got it.
Tamara was like, need to cross the danger.
Oh, really? Yeah.
That's why I
You
was
mean
like,
here?
well, the first thing she saw, I can't show pictures of it, Tamara,
The
yeah.
box turtle?
It's dangerous.
Greg,
Hi.
over to you.
Yep. Cynthia, we ready? It's not loading. I have hard copies. I've got maybe 8 copies I can pass around. If you all don't have a hard copy, I can.
I think I got it. This is all mixed together.
4B. Is it not in there?
Mine aren't separated out.
It should be the first item after the agenda.
It's
maybe
4C,
over here.
right?
They're all just piled together. They're not separated.
It's 4C, not 4B.
I'm sorry, 4C. Thank you.
I don't think I have a 4C.
Yeah, we all do.
Do?
Looks like this.
Oh, maybe I,
Do you need this?
Here it goes.
I don't.
Okay.
I think Cynthia's trying to get it on the overhead. We can go or wait. It's up to you all.
I just got one piece of paper.
It's not loading.
Can I get
thing.
do you have a copy? Could I
do.
have just this?
I don't have a 4C.
Thank you.
Copies?
Thank you.
I'm all set.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do. I'm sorry, I do. Good.
That's not it.
That's not it. I don't.
You
I
do
don't.
need one. All right, Harry, this is
Okay.
it. There, here.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Good? Should I start or wait?
Yes, please.
No, go ahead.
I've got 3 extra copies. Anybody? One extra one is right here. Okay, so
That's right.
So this subject is streetscape. Just when we thought we were done, phase 6. I called it rescoped. So in the package I have just 4 or 5 slides, but the most important thing is the first sentence. I am not looking for any Board of Selectmen action this evening. This is strictly a heads up because we will be looking for a recommended action at your next meeting, assuming we want to pursue the next LOTSIP grant application, which will be coming out in a couple weeks. This one's different than every other phase in a couple key ways, so that's what this presentation is all about. It's a heads up and it's giving you a month to think about this particular phase. So what I'm going to talk about is what's changed. You may remember last December we finished a Still River Greenway Trail study that recommended extending the trail from the end of phase 4 at Newberry Village all the way to New Milford. When we made that recommendation based on community input, we also decided to cancel Streetscape Phase 6 on Laurel Hill Road. That project's off the books, we're off the LOTSIP list. The town, we returned the unspent money of the 450,000, some big amount, and there was no Phase 6. So what's happened since December? A couple things. With the grocery store coming in the spring of '24 and the lack of parking, there's never enough parking there seems in the TCD. And we had a developer actually offering to pay engineering design costs. The idea came about, why not add more parking between the new pocket park and the new light going into the grocery store? So what this rescoped phase 6 is basically adding streetscape, parking on both sides from the pocket park in front of the new Duncan Plaza all the way to the new light going into the new grocery store. So that's the idea. The first page in your presentation is a color slide that shows the conceptual design. And if you look, you can see the pocket park, you see the little circle, you see Old Road 7. There's only going to be a sidewalk on the west side because the Still River Greenway is on the other side. There'll be granite on both sides, our brick pavers, our sidewalk lights on both sides, and parallel parking on both sides of the road. That's 33 parking places between the new traffic light, which you can see on the right, and the pocket park. So that's the idea. I'm going to keep
You want
going.
questions afterwards, Greg, or?
Well, however you like. If you want to ask it now, please go ahead.
I'll wait till you.
Okay. The next page is the cost estimate.
I have a question. Has
go
the
ahead.
traffic light been approved?
No, not by, well, we heard OSTA has approved the OSTA permit, but nobody has a signed copy of that permit. So until we have a signed copy, as far as I'm concerned, it's not approved. We've heard it's gone up the chain for signature, but we've not seen the signed OSTA permit.
Thank
either us or the developer for that grocery store.
Only 5 years.
We've been asking nonstop for
Just
a
one
year or
question.
so.
Can you clarify? You had just said earlier, it's a little hard to see here. You're saying we are gonna put parking on both sides of the road?
Yeah. Yep. It's within the right-of-way. It's hard, I know, I'm sorry, it's hard to read this small map.
Yeah, it's a little.
But it's in the state right-of-way. The only place we would need an easement would be from where the medical center is, the urgent care, and that developer has offered to donate that easement to the town.
I'll ask my question now.
Yep.
Does the state get involved with whether it, seeing as it's one lane, this is one lane north, one lane south, the road, correct?
Mhm.
So do they get involved as to parallel parking versus standard parking?
Yes, it's in their right-of-way. The absolute answer is yes. In fact, Harry, if you may recall, on phase one, 8 years ago, we tried to put slant parking in.
Right.
The state said no.
Right, okay.
Parallel only, and I'm sure they're gonna continue with
Yeah.
that same mindset.
No, I just wanted to make sure it was gonna be, yeah.
I think it will tie it all together quite nicely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the concept. The next page in your package is the $1.4 million estimate. Again, conceptual. You can look at all the detail. But there it is, 1.4 million bucks.
Are you throwing contingency in under the annual inflation and?
Yeah,
I don't see-
contingency is the second last line from the bottom, 10%. Second last line from the bottom is contingency, 113,000 at 10%.
Oh, I see, okay.
We've also added 5% inflation. I'm
Okay.
assuming it's a year from, when this estimate was done. Okay, I'm gonna keep going.
Yeah.
The next page is actually 3 pages. This is a memorandum of understanding. This is our draft MOU for the developer to pay for engineering design. As you recall from LOTSIP, they only pay for construction and right-of-way and moving utility poles. They do not cover engineering design. Both Tony Lucera and Paul Scalzo, who are building this grocery store project, actually approached the town. I don't know if it was Tara or me, maybe both. I don't even know which sequence it happened, but said they are willing to cover the town's engineering design costs. This MOU is a draft we've sent to them asking for their comment, because if they do that, there'll be no out of cost to the town except project management, which is my time. So Tony Lucera said that he is okay with this. I've not heard from Paul Scalzo. I think he's on vacation, or someone's on vacation. He hasn't got back to me. I don't know if he's got back to any of you. But this we need to have a clear understanding on before next month, because when we go to a special town meeting or vote for this, we're gonna wanna know, is the town gonna be paying for engineering design, or are the developers? So the question is, what does engineering design cost? Typically 7 to 8% of construction costs. So if we're at $1.3 million of construction, take 7%, we're just under $100,000. So this contract is a $100,000 contract. So between now and next month, we really should nail this down. If we're gonna, usually LOTSIP, just like STEEP, it's gonna come out, you're gonna have a month to respond. And we're gonna have to jump through hoops to meet deadlines for that LOTSIP solicitation. So there's that 3-page contract.
So when do you want us to address this MOU?
I think by the next Board of Selectmen meeting, I think we should have a clear direction if they're able to sign, and if so, that's great. If not, the question for this board is, are we gonna wanna pursue this project and the town pick up engineering design costs?
I have a question. What is good and valuable consideration on our part to them? Or is this just a donation?
They're off, well,
I think I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking.
this contract
Which
was
is what?
prepared, pardon me?
What is everybody thinking?
I just want to make sure that this is not contingent, or whether it is contingent on.
Anything else?
On anything else.
We had that same conversation with the draft of this contract. This is a standalone agreement with no other.
Okay, good.
Okay.
That's what I.
The only thing it's agreeing to is what's written here.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Not anything else.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so I think a month from now, it'd be good to know if we're gonna go with this or not. So it gives us a month to think about it. Two more quick pages and I'll be done. Next steps. The LOTSIP solicitation is going to be coming out in September, early September, maybe the end of August. We're going to need a Board of Selectmen letter of support. I've been told the deadline is going to be October 13th for this round of LOTSIP. So we'll even have your early October meeting if we need to have any final last approvals or checks. And of course, this engineering MOU is going to be important to nail down sometime in September. Now, the last page has got to do with, I think, a bigger opportunity and a situation for us, and it's the LOTSIP program guidelines that are changing. LOTSIP's been an incredibly successful program across the state, much more favorable to the town than federal money for a lot of reasons. But we've not been performing well as a COG. We've got over $100 million that have been appropriated to the COG for the towns to spend for LOTSIP, but we're not spending that money at a rate equal to the other COGs. I think we're the second worst performing COG when it comes to spending LOTSIP money. And it's one of these things, if you fall too far behind, we may not get future solicitations from the DOT or future funding from the DOT. So with that in mind, there are draft LOTSIP regulation guideline changes that we've reviewed. I think the COG members have reviewed them, and they're going to be up for vote at the next COG meeting. And those changes are important to know because they could impact our projects. By the way, if you look at the list of COG projects, there's probably 60. Brookfield only has 3 or 4 projects, every phase except phase 2, which was federal money. But some towns like Stamford and Greenwich, they've got dozens of projects, and they're big money projects, $3, $4, $5, $6 million. And they're not spending at a rate, and that money's just sitting there locked up, not getting spent. That's not what the DOT wants to see. They want to see the money being spent for the projects that they're trying to fund. So that's a reason why these LOTSIP guidelines are going to be changing. So my first point there is we're not performing well as a COG. So what's going to change? Projects will be canceled if they're not completed 6 years after approval. We're 3 years into phase 4, and we're still not close to approval. So that's kind of a heads up for us. We need to get moving on phase 4, or we could lose LOTSIP. Project's going to be capped at $4 million. Right now, some projects are $5 and $6 million from some of the other towns. Excessive cost overruns will be covered by the town. Now, the exact language of that hasn't really been ironed out, I think, completely. There'll be an annual review of all projects, and those that are in limbo have to get resubmitted. And we've got phases 4,
So these
5.
would be WestCog adopting, not
This is WestCog guidelines, yes.
Yeah, we've been pushing for this for a long time.
And then past performance will be factored into future approvals. So if you got a bad track record, you might not get an approval. Like before, it was all just everyone gets approved with an application, kind of. And here's another good piece. I think this is a good change. Every year there will be a solicitation in September, so we can do our planning many months in advance of knowing that a solicitation is going to come out in September instead of having to react at a last minute at a meeting. So I think every September we can expect a solicitation, and we can think about what we want to do in future years, if anything, instead of not knowing when the next solicitation is going to be. So that helps with our planning. The last page is just a review of all 6 phases. I was in the paper a couple of weeks ago about this, and I think it's important to know the bottom 2 lines. I mean, if we go out to all 6 phases, it'll be $12.4 million, only $3 million of town money, but half that money was spent in phase 1. We are very efficient with town money in all these future phases. We're spending $4 or $5 million in these last 3 phases with less than $1 million of town money. In fact, about $700,000. So I think we've become efficient on using the state money as much as we possibly can, and I think it's been valuable from at least that perspective, if not others. That's all I've got.
Very informative.
Thank you, Greg.
And
Okay.
a good breakdown of the future of the LOTSIP program and the COG, which was a mess in our last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving along to our monthly agenda items, which seems like it got buried at the bottom, but we're not even really halfway through this agenda. Our coffee will be on the 26th from 9 to 10 at the #the cafe. Please come by. Our vacancies of boards and commissions are listed here. 1 still remains on the Arts Commission, 2 on the Energy Advisory Board, 2 alternates and 1 regular for Inland Wetlands, 1 for the Housing Authority, 3 for the Still River Greenway, and 1 alternate for the WPCA. I'd like to add to our announcements a note of thanks to Bobby, Sheldon, and Ralph for their work at the Historical Society, where they were able to install an air conditioning system, which was funded through ARPA. So thank you to them for their diligence and working together with the Historical Society on that. Our correspondence this month as listed. And that's it for our agenda items. Over to you, Marcia.
All right, you should have received the budget to actual report for expenditures. We generally do budget transfers quarterly. The things we're watching, legal fees for blight that we're expecting to be, we can't expect that. Our best guess is $40,000 for 2 cases total. And we only have $15,000 in the budget, so we'll be looking for where we're going to find that money. Registrars will need more money for that, and he'll be coming to you next month to talk about that. The budget to actual for revenue, it's a big month for the tax collector. And
I'm sorry, Marcia, you seemed to, did you touch on the first page with the salary study increase?
Oh, that one we'll need to know what we're doing with that. I don't know if we're having it or not. I saw it on the Board of Finance's agenda for Wednesday.
So the board chair told me at his last meeting that the board will be making the recommendation this month.
Okay. So we'll need the money for that as well.
Which money is that?
Last year was in the budget as 20.
Right. So where is this increase coming from?
We don't know yet. We're going to look for next month that when
this $5,250. What is that?
Hold on. Looking for. Oh, that one we don't have. You're looking at the professional services for Board of Finance. Is that what?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the first page. It's under Selectmen, Professional Services, increase for salary study is your note here?
Correct. I'm just trying to show the things that we know about right now, and we haven't figured out where we're getting that money yet. We haven't figured out what's being done yet, so I don't have any details to how much we need and where.
Why is, so that 20,000 that you just spoke about was under the Board of Finance, right?
Last year, this 20 is the audit, the town portion of the audit. The audit's divided between town, Board of Ed, and WPCA. So there's no money in the budget right now for a salary study.
Are we looking at the same thing? 2007-31 budget versus actual?
Page 1.
Page 3. Where's my page 1? Okay. No,
Yep. So if you have it.
Did it get reshuffled in here somewhere?
I'm going to look.
So if you have yours
I stapled all my stuff together.
printed in color, you'll see there's yellow.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
Yep. So we need to get money for the salary study, whatever.
What you're saying is, wait.
I thought we had it allocated.
Just a few minutes ago, you said $20,000 was allocated.
Was in last year's, but it expired June 30th. So we didn't spend it, we didn't encumber it.
So I asked about that.
And we can't encumber it until we have a contract.
So when we get a contract and encumber it, we're gonna put it under the selectmen's budget?
We can put it any place you'd like. That right there that you're pointing to is under the Board of Finance budget. The name is at the bottom.
Oh, okay. All right. That's where I was confused. So again, what was that increase of over the 20,000?
So included, we had 20,000 in the 23 budget. We don't have anything in the 24 budget. The 25,250 you're looking at is primarily the audit.
So this comment should say increase for audit.
No, the audit's in there, and the audit's covered. but we don't have a salary study, so I just made a note that we're going to have to increase that line for a salary study.
To the tune of 25,000.
Or whatever is decided that we're going to get, and the,
So the funding for the salary study went away, right?
we need to
Because
get
we
it back.
Didn't encumber it, and now we have to get it back and find out a place.
Correct, and we couldn't encumber it because we
No
didn't have,
contract, no.
we didn't have a vendor and a firm commitment. That's what we need to encumber it. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
So there's different things that we're looking for. I just tried to highlight them on here, just so you know what we know, that it's usually best for you to know as soon as we know where we might have issues. There's no budget to actual for revenue because it's a big collection month for the tax collector, and one deposit posted twice is enough to really throw us off. So we wait on July until we get the bank statement and get it balanced.
So overall, though, we're good on tax collections as we have in the past?
Yes.
We're running 98, 99%.
Well, we're only halfway, so.
Yeah,
but
I mean, but of what's due.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
So nothing to be concerned about right now?
Correct.
Okay.
That, we talked about next month, the transfer for the police promotion. Next month, that we want to talk about transfers with the police. The state of Connecticut has a uniform chart of accounts, and we use that for every department for the salaries except the police. And they're going through a new scheduling program where it'd be a good time now so that we use the same coding for all, that we have union employees, non-union employees, and so we may have some budget transfers associated with that as setting up their no changes to the dollars, no changes to how much anyone gets paid.
Just how we're allocating.
Just to match the uniform chart of accounts. And then we've got some capital items that we're monitoring, and as we close June 30th, we're going through every capital item, and so we've got some pluses and minuses that are there. So that's all year-end 24 stuff. Year-end 23, all invoices were due last month, so we could post them as accounts payable. They were they were due last week and paid last week. We're starting to close the books. The auditors are coming the week of September 11th and September 18th. On the revenues from last year, we won't have a final number because of the 60-day rule that we've got to wait and see what we collect through August of, the end of August of, to figure out what the revenues were for last year. So we won't have that final number until August 29th, is 60 days out. Any questions, other questions?
Did you want to touch on just the tax sale and the license plate program? Those are other revenues that are outstanding, right? The tax sale's looking good.
So the tax sale, that might, so the way it works with the taxes, it's essentially on a cash basis from September 1 to August 31st. The tax collector has a tax sale scheduled for August 23rd. So that money will go against last year's revenue, and it could be significant. I think there were 30 properties to begin with, and we've had 9 of them get paid off so far, and she's expecting more will get paid off before the tax sale happens. So that is all very good, and will add to the 2023 revenues. I haven't heard anything about, but I have a phone a friend here that
They had to wait for the regular collection, and I think they're going to be doing the first billing this month. We're just waiting for the collection, so I'm going to, hopefully they'll let me know in the next week or two.
So it's too early to tell on the,
When would we know how much we're looking at?
As soon as they set the bills, they'll have a total.
Okay.
Because it just goes right against the mill rate.
Great. With bated breath.
Everything's positive, don't forget, whatever it is, it's.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Finance? You guys all set? Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Moving along to item 6A, our long-awaited and tabled HR regulation revisions. Has everybody had a chance to look over?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. There is one item I did want to address that was brought to my attention over the weekend. It had come up and inadvertently didn't get accounted for, but back in February of 2023, we as a board approved the personnel policies and procedures out-of-pocket expense reimbursement for meeting and travel expense. And the item on here said, expenses requested for reimbursement by the first selectman must be approved by the town controller. For some reason, the recommendation that maybe the treasurer should either also approve or only approve.
I always, because you can't have an employee that works for you approve your expenses. You have to have a separation of powers there.
I understand that, but when
we always
did
had
this
I always
policy as
had
a
the
board-
treasurer approve my personal expenses, an expense report.
Okay, but we approved the policy as a board, so I'm going to make a motion that we first amend this policy.
Yes, I agree.
And I'd like to discuss whether or not it's for both the treasurer and controller, which would be my recommendation, so we have foolproof quality assurance instead of just saying, okay, treasurer, I drove to Hartford, reimburse me $5,000. I would suggest that it's either and or both.
I would at least do both because Marcia works for you. So you can't have your employee approve
Just
your
like
expenses.
anytime John and I sign a check, it's John and I, not
Right.
one or the other.
Right.
So we're all on board with
Yeah,
that? I'd
yeah.
like to make the motion then that we amend this policy that we, as a board, approved in February to add the treasurer, approved by town controller and treasurer.
I'll second that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
And similarly, that would be the same thing to address in item 17-.14 on page 20 of this HR policy. Item 17.14. If you want to look at it. Last bullet in red. Expenses requested for reimbursement by
printed
the first
page
selectman
20.
must be approved by the town controller and treasurer, it should say.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easy enough?
Yep.
So amend the motion to add that page, this 17.1, is it 4 or just 17.1? So the motion would be to amend both.
Yes, I'll
To
second.
reflect the same.
I'll second that.
That's fine.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So for the rest of the document, I would like to vote on it as, in its entirety as is, unless you have another suggestion.
Nope, I'm fine with that. I read it. It's mostly updating to meet current
Yeah.
rules, laws, regulations.
It was last updated in 2014, so it was
Yeah.
absolutely time.
Yep, I agree.
Sorry, our HR director has her hand raised.
Sorry. There's just two things that I would like you to discuss. One of them
Right.
being the life insurance
Thank you.
policy for active employees. We currently have a $200,000 cap.
Can you come up to the
Yeah,
microphone?
yeah.
please?
We currently have, for active employees, a $200,000 cap at this point, and I recommend that we stay at that cap, that we don't increase it. I did look at the cost to increase it, as many of you know, salaries go up, and our policy is 2.2 times their salary. But I did check with our surrounding towns, and we are very rich when it comes to that. So I would recommend that we stay at the $200,000 cap for our non-union employees.
How many people are affected by that?
8.
Is that as written in the policy right now?
No, right now it's a question for you guys to give me a definite to decide on.
I'm
So I
sorry,
gave you.
what number is that? That life insurance?
Yes.
43.
Okay.
Section 43.
So the red, not to exceed 200,000?
To leave it at the $200,000 cap. That's my recommendation.
So we take out the stars and everything there?
Correct. Just leave it at 2, in other words, it stays the same. Nothing changes in that provision. And then the other one is, which is the next one, which is 43.1 for retirees. So this is a death benefit that's for only for employees who have retired from the town. And currently we have an $8,000 death benefit. That hasn't been changed in 20 years. It used to be 5, then it went to 8. And my suggestion is that we bump it up to 10,000, because my understanding is that this was to help with funeral costs. And I don't know if any of you know what funeral costs today, but $8,000 doesn't really get you far. Not that 10 will, but I think it's a fair increase. And there's no cost to the town when it comes to that, because it would be effective for employees that retire after this is signed. So it would be the effective date. And right now, the only person who will be retiring is Demi, and it would.
We have a police officer retirement coming up too, but.
And him too.
It's $2,000.
And that cost per person for the retirees is pennies a month. And unfortunately, with our retirees, we do have some that pass away during the year. So any retirees that would retire, it kind of balances out. So there's really no significant cost to the town.
Yeah.
Those are the only two that I kind of just wanted to bring up for discussion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. On 43.1, just, it's housekeeping. So you want it to read not to exceed 200,000.
Correct.
And take out everything after that.
Correct.
Because there's a bunch of stuff after
Yep.
that. Okay.
Nope.
Okay. I think that's reasonable.
Was there anything else that you wanted to
Nope, those
highlight?
are the only two.
Does anybody have any questions while we have Fern on any of it?
No.
None.
I'm sorry, did I make the motion to approve the HR revisions as presented?
And amended. Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't think we made.
Presented here tonight,
Right.
in here.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion on the HR revisions?
Nope.
None.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 So we did agree to move it to 10,000.
Yes.
We're saying that.
Yeah.
To 10 in the and then cap it at 200.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's
Yeah.
Yep.
the record.
And then
Okay.
change the signature to the controller and the treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. We're making progress here, gentlemen. Item 7.
8.
7. WPCA.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7, yes.
So, have you had a chance to review the draft letter to the WPCA that
Yes.
I asked for your signature on tonight?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen approve the recommendations and sign the letter from the board to the WPCA.
Yeah, I'll second that for discussion purposes. I just want to make sure, the Board of Ethics recommended a number of things, and going through it, we believe that the letter we're sending covers all of the items that the Board of
Yes.
Ethics
Mhm.
mentioned?
Yes, so I went
It
through
seemed to me it
and
does.
there,
Did the town attorney
there's
write this?
more in the, you've looked at the letter to the.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I think it
Yeah,
was
we
in
looked
our
at it.
last packet from last month.
Yeah.
But, oh no, did I share that letter? I don't recall. I think it was.
Yes,
But
from
it
the Board
appears
of
that
Ethics.
they bulletized more recommendations, but some of them were redundant. So when I consolidated all the
Okay.
recommendations, I found these 12 to be their recommendations.
Okay.
So all the letter is saying essentially is that we concur with their findings and we encourage the WPCA to move forward and do great things
Mhm.
according to their findings.
Right.
And we're not asking anything that any other board or commission is supposed to be doing, so.
And they are already working on some of this. I know that to be true, so it's all good news and we're gonna move forward and kind of tidy things up. So, is there any further discussion on that? I would like to get your signature tonight, just so I have it.
Yeah. No further discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll sign it. Okay. Item 8. Can we get Laura on the line? So, we might not need her, but have her on standby, please. She's on leave doing horse training for the governor's horse guard.
Yeah.
Her signature, Steve.
How about your pen?
This came up, we tabled it, if you recall, earlier this spring. It's the land use ordinance where we found an issue because there were a couple of issues, but the primary issue is there was no fee schedule set for any violations, which is a major problem. And it's been many decades since the town hasn't been recouping any fees associated for any wrongdoing. So we've got to get that corrected, but then also there were other issues within the body of the, what's it called exactly? It's in the back here. This Article 2, citations or violations and zoning regulations, which lays out the code and whatever these regulation numbers are, the zoning sections.
Mhm.
There were some discrepancies of the new regs not matching with what was indicated and what we had. So
It's clean up.
we need to start all over is essentially what this letter says.
Okay.
We had the attorney look at it because later it was brought to our attention that it was readdressed at a later date, which was 2006. The initial one was established in 97. We were trying to change the 97 one and didn't know at the time that 2006 it was readdressed.
Right,
So,
okay.
long story short, we're starting over. This letter explains exactly what it is, what we're trying to do, which is
Mhm.
properly align the zoning regulations to Chapter 84 that was adopted in 1997. So I've got Laura on standby. If you guys have any questions for her, I feel like we've been over this ad nauseum. We have more time if anybody has any concerns or questions or we're not comfortable with what the revision is. Behind her letter is the actual draft of what's proposed for Chapter 84. And behind that is the current version that we're still using today, which doesn't get us anywhere. So say, for example, there's a major infraction, there's no penalty, there's no teeth to it. So we've really got to get after this, and Attorney Schellenberg worked diligently on drafting this proposed update to Chapter 84. But essentially tonight we just need to set a public hearing, which is what I'd like to do before our
Yeah, I
meeting in September.
I agree with that.
Just want to check that date.
Which one?
I think the 5th might be Tuesday. September 5th of November.
So what does that mean?
That's the day after Labor Day.
It is.
So I think the meeting's
When is our next meeting? Because we already set the public hearing for the fire marshal thing.
September 4th.
That's a holiday.
September 5th.
It is for the week. Okay, so
fifth?
just Tuesday the 5th, not Monday.
Oh, right.
That's all.
Well, is it on the calendar for the 5th?
It's on the town website.
have to go back and look at the letter of what, well, we ran into this for the 4th of July because what we approved in our annual letter that Ginny had done last December didn't match what the meeting was. So, for the 4th of July, because the 4th of July was on a Tuesday this year. We can just say at our next meeting, oh no, because we need a date.
At the next regularly
Must be
scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting.
Right.
Would that work?
Sure. So the motion is would be to set a public hearing for the ordinance revision of the zoning violations and citations before our next regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting. I think we have it for
6:45.
6:30.
Yeah, make it 6:30.
in this room.
Yeah.
Right.
Any seconds?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion on that?
No.
Nobody wants to call Laura, find out more at this 9:20 hour.
No.
All right.
No.
I have
Hearing none.
questions, I'll give her a call.
All right, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. The Kennewood Lake Waterline Assessment, item 9. This one's pretty cut and dry. We're at the final stages here of this whole kit and caboodle. So the first motion would be to waive the reading of the resolution.
I make that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion on the waiving of the reading of the resolution? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the second motion would be to adopt the resolution as written and presented before us tonight, both item 1 with the attachment A.
I'll second that.
And that puts the gears into motion to get all of the benefit assessment letters to the residents as listed on this attachment A and to be published into the paper within 5 days.
And the difference between these benefit assessments and the ones that they saw earlier is just that was based on a budget, and this is based on the actual. The actual was much lower than the budget,
Yeah.
so all of these are much lower than what they.
Than what we estimated when we, okay, because I was looking at them, I said, these numbers don't look right.
Yeah, no, they're
Just from memory.
based on,
Okay.
we came in well under budget. and
Yeah.
Right.
Way under budget. Oh, that's good.
That's a good news story. I'm sure the homeowners are very happy.
This goes up to about 100. Is that up where the marina is? Is it up that far?
No, it only goes up to the school, to the Huckleberry, Center Lake, Candlewood Lake Elementary.
I'm reading
Say
it.
that right
Okay.
one of these
Yeah.
days.
This
And
print is so,
there
I
was,
thought
I
it
mean,
was.
if I'm not mistaken, there were a lot more residents too who were offered the opportunity, but they opted out, didn't want to tie in, right?
Yeah, they still get
Yeah.
assessed.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because the property accrues the value, right? When they go to sell it, it makes it a lot easier to sell when you've got the option, even if you hook up, you've got the option to hook up the sewer, so people don't have to worry about septic fields.
Not sewer, this is water.
Water, I'm sorry, with water.
I said the same.
Let's not talk about
Yeah.
sewer right now.
Okay, it's a water assessment. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Hi, Jim. The motion's on the floor. It was seconded. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I wish there was some way we could get the print a little bigger. I mean, it's so, it's,
I'm gonna bring you a magnifying glass
Well-
next month, Harry.
that's pretty, I got my glass, I mean,
Okay.
it's pretty small.
Very small.
Item 10, the consent agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A through D on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
I do want to talk about Delta. To highlight our new hires, Tony Augustine, who was promoted to captain on the 2nd of August. Michael Hicks, promoted to superintendent of roads on the 31st of July. Bill Babiak will be promoted to building official effective the 1st of September. Ben Ford is our new library custodian, effective today. Chris Marquis, who will be our new assistant building official, starting on the 28th of August. And James Doctor has retired, effective July. Kevin Brooks will be retiring August, as well as Demi Parpana at the end of the month. Did I get a second? You seconded that, right,
Yes.
Steve? Any
Yeah.
discussion on the consent
No.
agenda? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our additional monthly agenda items. There's an attachment in your packet of a recommendation for Matthew Wolk to the WPCA, which would take away that vacancy I mentioned earlier. And that recommendation came from the chair of the WPCA.
Oh,
Have you had a chance to look at his
Yeah.
thing there?
I have no issues.
Bio brief. Okay. I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen appoint Matt Wolk, unaffiliated, as alternate on the WPCA for a term of tonight through the 2nd of February 2026, as recommended by the WPCA.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 And our Emergency Management Director appointment. I'd like to make the recommendation that the Board of Selectmen approve the appointment of Sarah Palmer, who's currently our interim Emergency Management Director, to the position as our permanent Emergency Management Director.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on appointing Ms. Palmer to Emergency Management Director?
No, I was very comfortable with the letters of recommendation. She seems very, very qualified. In fact, she got a college degree in this.
And here's her resume if you want to take a look, which I
No,
already emailed to you guys.
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay,
I was-
super. And I did want to thank the fire chief and the police chief for their letters. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And our final appointment of the evening is for Officer Tony Augustine to be appointed as police captain. That is my motion.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on appointing Officer Augustine to captain?
I have none.
Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. And finally, I'd like to make a motion that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session to discuss town rental properties at both 28 Obtuse and 35 Obtuse.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that
Just
motion?
state who's gonna go into executive.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I would like to invite, is she still here?
Tammy? Yeah.
Yes, our town assessor, our town controller. Sorry, Marcia, you thought you were going somewhere. And our town attorney, as well as the 3 board members.
Cindy?
Oh, and Cynthia, our Board of Selectmen assistant.
Thank you, Greg.
Oh,
You too.
adios, amigos.
After 3 hours.
They told me to drive home and come back. They had shower.
You wanna invite John?
A couple of nights I would have just stayed.
About a
I
cop.
really think I was up all night last night.
Good night, John.
I think he wants to go home to bed.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Thank
night.
you.
Thank you. A return. Yes, thank you. Good night. Thank you for staying, Tammy,
No
Dennis,
problem.
Cynthia.
Thank you, Cynthia, for all your help. Thank God you found all the papers.